What happens when two powerhouse women in music sit down for what should be a friendly chat, but old wounds and industry secrets come bubbling to the surface? What you're about to witness is one of the most shocking moments in daytime television. History where a simple interview spiraled into a confrontation so intense that it ended with a guest storming off set. Before we dive into this explosive encounter, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below, because this story has layers that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about these two stars. The atmosphere in the Kelly Clarkson show studio was electric that morning. Gwen Stefani walked onto the set with her signature confidence, her platinum blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a striking black and white ensemble that screamed both elegance and edge. The audience erupted in applause as she took her seat across from Kelly, who beamed with what appeared to be genuine excitement. This was supposed to be a celebration, a reunion of sorts between two women who had both carved their names into music history. Kelly leaned forward with enthusiasm, her warm smile lighting up the studio. "Gwen, it is so incredible to have you here. I have to tell you, I've been a fan since the No Doubt days, and watching your evolution as an artist has been absolutely inspiring." Gwen's response was polite but measured. "Thank you, Kelly. That means a lot coming from someone with your talent and success." There was something in her tone, a slight coolness that the trained eye might have caught. But the audience was still riding the wave of excitement. Kelly dove into the interview with her characteristic enthusiasm. "Let's talk about your journey. You've reinvented yourself so many times, from Skopunk princess to pop icon to fashion mogul. What drives that constant evolution?" "Evolution is survival in this industry," Gwen replied, her fingers drumming lightly on the armrest of her chair. "You adapt, or you become irrelevant. I've always believed in pushing boundaries, even when people don't understand or appreciate it at first." The conversation flowed smoothly for several minutes, touching on Gwen's recent projects, her fashion line, and her role as a coach on various singing competitions. But there was an undercurrent, a tension that seemed to be building beneath the surface pleasantries. Kelly's questions were becoming more pointed, more personal. "You know, Gwen, I have to ask about something that's been on my mind," Kelly said, her tone shifting slightly. "Throughout your career, you've worked with some incredible artists, some amazing collaborators. But I've noticed that some of those relationships seem to have, well, ended on complicated terms." Gwen's posture straightened almost imperceptibly. "Relationships in this industry are complex, Kelly. Creative partnerships can be intense, and sometimes they run their course. That's just the nature of the business. But don't you think there's a pattern there?" Kelly pressed, her journalist instincts apparently overriding her usual diplomatic approach. "I mean, when you look at the history, the departures from your band, some of the collaborations that ended abruptly, the public disagreements, at what point do you start looking inward?" The studio audience began to sense the shift in energy. What had started as a friendly interview was taking on the feel of something more confrontational. Gwen's smile remained fixed, but her eyes had hardened. "I think that's a rather bold statement to make, Kelly," Gwen said, her voice maintaining its composure but carrying a new edge, especially coming from someone who's had their own share of industry challenges and public scrutiny. Kelly didn't back down. "I'm not trying to attack you, Gwen. I'm genuinely curious about the narrative that seems to follow your career. The idea that you're difficult to work with, that you're demanding, controlling. These aren't my words. These are things that have been said by people who've worked with you." Demanding Gwen's voice rose slightly. "Is that what we call a woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to fight for her vision? Because I find it interesting that when a male artist does the exact same thing, he's called a perfectionist, a visionary. But when a woman does it, she's difficult." The tension in the studio was palpable now. Kelly leaned back slightly, perhaps realizing she had struck a nerve, but she wasn't retreating. "That's a fair point about gender double standards in the industry. But I'm talking about specific situations, specific people who have spoken about their experiences working with you." "Specific people." Gwen's laugh was sharp, cutting through the studio air like a blade. "Are we going to sit here and relitigate every professional decision I've made over a 30-year career? Because if that's what this interview is about, Kelly, maybe you should have been more upfront about your intentions." The audience was now completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't the light-hearted celebrity chat they had signed up for. Kelly's usual warmth was replaced by something more intense, more journalistic. "My intentions are to have an honest conversation," Kelly replied, her own voice taking on a firmer tone. "I think our viewers deserve authenticity, not just the sanitized version of celebrity that we usually get in these settings. Authenticity." Gwen stood up slightly in her chair, her body language screaming defiance. "You want to talk about authenticity? Let's talk about authenticity, Kelly." Gwen's eyes flashed with something dangerous as she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a controlled whisper that somehow carried more weight than if she had shouted. "You want authenticity, Kelly? Then let's be authentic. Let's talk about how you've built your entire brand on being the relatable, down-to-earth girl next door, while systematically undermining other women in this industry behind closed doors." Kelly's face went pale, her confident demeanor cracking for the first time. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Gwen. I've always supported other female artists. Have you?" Gwen's laugh was bitter now, all pretense of politeness evaporating. "Because I have some very interesting stories about what you've said in private meetings, in boardrooms where you thought nobody would ever repeat your words. We share those with your audience." The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras humming. Kelly's production team behind the cameras looked panicked, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut to commercial. The audience sat frozen, witnessing what felt like a car crash in real time. Kelly tried to regain control, her media training kicking in. "Gwen, I think you might be misunderstanding something. If someone told you I said something negative about you, maybe we should discuss this privately after the show." "Want privacy?" Gwen stood up fully now, her tall frame casting a shadow over Kelly's desk. "Where was that concern for privacy when you were spreading rumors about my personal life during my divorce? When you were whispering to executives about how unstable I was, how unreliable?" Kelly's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I have never done anything like that." "Gwen, you're clearly upset about something, but I think you're misdirecting your anger." "Misdirecting?" Gwen's voice rose to a level that made everyone in the studio flinch. "Kelly, I have receipts. I have witnesses. I have recordings of phone calls where you laughed about my marriage falling apart, where you called me a has-been trying to stay relevant through my relationships." The color drained completely from Kelly's face. "That's not, if I said something that was taken out of context, I apologize. But I would never intentionally hurt another artist." Taken out of context, Gwen began pacing behind her chair, like a caged animal. "How do you take calling someone a desperate attention seeker out of context? How do you misinterpret telling a record executive that I was past my prime and that they should focus on newer, more stable talent?" Kelly looked desperately at her producers off camera, but they were just as stunned as everyone else. "Gwen, please, let's just take a breath here. I think there's been some miscommunication somewhere." "The only miscommunication," Gwen said, pointing an accusatory finger at Kelly, "is that I trusted people who told me you were different, that you were one of the good ones, that you actually supported other women instead of just pretending to for your image." Kelly's eyes were now visibly watery, her composure completely shattered. "I am supportive of other women. My entire show is built around uplifting people, celebrating their achievements." "Your show is built around making yourself look good," Gwen shot back. "You bring people on here, you ask them softball questions, you make them feel comfortable and grateful, and then you go behind their backs and tear them down to anyone who will listen. It's the most insidious kind of betrayal, because nobody sees it coming." The audience was completely silent now, some people covering their mouths in shock, others leaning forward despite themselves, unable to look away from the destruction unfolding before them. Kelly tried one more time to salvage the situation. "Gwen, I understand you're hurt by something, and if I played any role in that hurt, I am truly sorry. But the person you're describing, that's not who I am. That's not who I've ever been." Gwen stopped pacing and fixed Kelly with a stare that could have cut glass. "Do you know what the worst part is, Kelly? It's not even that you said those things about me, it's that you said them with such conviction, such certainty, like you actually believed you were doing the industry a favor by trying to push me out." "I have never tried to push anyone out of anything," Kelly said, her voice barely above a whisper now. "No. Then explain to me why 3 different labels were suddenly hesitant to work with me after private conversations with you. Explain why." Collaborations that were all but signed fell through after you had dinner with the right executives. Explain why my name started getting dropped from projects right after you started your campaign of concern. Trolling about my mental state, Kelly's hands were visibly shaking now. Gwen, you're painting me as some kind of master manipulator. And that's just not accurate. If business decisions were made that affected you, I had nothing to do with them. Nothing to do with them. Gwen's voice reached a pitch that made several audience members jump. Kelly, I have a recording of you telling a Sony executive that working with me would be a liability because of my personal problems. Would you like me to play it right here, right now? The threat hung in the air like a sword over Kelly's head. Her eyes darted around the studio as if looking for an escape route. I don't know what recording you think you have, but I have never called anyone a liability. Oh, but you did, Gwen said, pulling out her phone with theatrical flair. You want authenticity? You want honesty. Let's give your audience the real Kelly Clarkson, not the carefully crafted version they've been fed. Kelly shot up from her chair so fast it nearly toppled over. You can't just play private conversations on television. There are legal issues, there are consent laws. Now you're worried about consent. Gwen's smile was predatory. Where was that concern when you were sharing private details about my life with people who had no business knowing them? The standoff between the two women was electric, the air in the studio thick with tension that seemed to crackle with every passing second. Kelly's hands were pressed flat against her desk, her knuckles white with the strain of trying to maintain some semblance of control. Gwen stood like a warrior, ready for battle, her phone held like a weapon of mass destruction. You know what, Gwen? Kelly's voice suddenly changed, the desperation replaced by something harder, more defiant. Maybe I did say those things. Maybe I did have conversations about your stability, your reliability. But you know what? I wasn't wrong, was I? Look at what you're doing right now. Look at how you're behaving on national television. The audience gasped collectively. It was as if Kelly had just lit a match and thrown it into a pool of gasoline. Gwen's face transformed, her features shifting from anger to something far more dangerous, cold fury mixed with vindication. There it is. There's the real Kelly Clarkson, the one who hides behind her wholesome image while she destroys other women's careers. I didn't destroy your career, Kelly shot back, her own voice rising now. Your career destroyed itself. The erratic behavior, the public meltdowns, the constant drama. I just refused to pretend it wasn't happening. Erratic behavior. Gwen's laugh was sharp enough to cut. You mean going through a divorce like millions of other women? Having the audacity to continue working while my personal life was falling apart? Or was it erratic because I didn't quietly disappear and make room for the next generation like you thought I should? Kelly stood up fully now, matching Gwen's energy. I thought you should get help. I thought you should take care of yourself, instead of dragging everyone around you into your chaos. My chaos. Gwen slammed her hand down on Kelly's desk with such force that the coffee mugs jumped. You want to talk about chaos? Let's talk about your divorce, Kelly. Let's talk about the custody battles, the public accusations, the messy financial disputes. But somehow, when it's your life falling apart, it's a brave journey of self-discovery. When it's mine, it's chaos that needs to be contained. The double standard hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Kelly's face flushed red, her carefully maintained composure completely shattered. That's completely different. I handled my situation with dignity. Dignity. Gwen's voice dripped with contempt. Is that what you call airing your dirty laundry in interviews for sympathy? Is that what you call using your platform to paint yourself as the victim while your ex-husband couldn't defend himself without looking like the bad guy? I never used my platform to hurt anyone, Kelly protested, but her voice lacked conviction now. No, you just used your influence to whisper poison in the right ears, to plant seeds of doubt about other women's capabilities, to position yourself as the stable alternative while everyone else was painted as unstable. Gwen's words were like bullets, each one finding its mark with devastating precision. Kelly's producer finally stepped forward, trying to signal for a commercial break, but both women ignored him completely. This had gone far beyond a television interview. This was a reckoning. You know what your problem is, Kelly? Gwen continued, her voice dropping to that dangerous whisper again. You've gotten so comfortable being America's sweetheart that you forgot other people are human beings too. You forgot that your words have consequences, that your opinions carry weight, that your casual cruelty can destroy lives. Casual cruelty? Kelly's voice cracked on the words. I have never been cruel. I have never tried to hurt anyone deliberately. Haven't you? Gwen pulled up something on her phone, her fingers moving with deliberate precision. Because I have a text message here from a mutual friend, someone who was in the room when you said, and I quote, Gwen Stefani is a cautionary tale about what happens when women in this industry don't know when to step back gracefully. The words hit Kelly like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, her face going ashen. That's not. You're taking that out of context. What context makes that okay? Gwen demanded. What context makes it acceptable for one woman to decide when another woman's time is up? What gave you the right to be the arbiter of my career, my relevance, my place in this industry? Kelly's mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak. People were asking my opinion about. Everyone has opinions about everyone in this business. Everyone doesn't have your platform. Everyone doesn't have your influence. Everyone doesn't get invited to the private dinners, where careers are made and destroyed over desert and casual conversation. Gwen's voice was building to a crescendo now, each word more powerful than the last. I never meant for any of this to hurt you, Kelly said weakly, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. You never meant for it to hurt me. Gwen's voice reached a pitch that seemed to vibrate through the entire studio. You systematically undermined my reputation, my professional relationships, my ability to work in my own industry, and you never meant for it to hurt me. What exactly did you think would happen? Kelly looked around desperately at her producers, at the audience, at anyone who might throw her a lifeline. But everyone was staring at her with a mixture of shock and disappointment. The wholesome image she had cultivated for years was crumbling in real time. I believed, you were already successful. You didn't need, Kelly stammered, her words tumbling over each other in her desperation to explain the unexplainable. I didn't need, what? Respect, support from my peers. The basic courtesy of not being sabotaged by someone I considered a colleague. Gwen was magnificent in her fury, a force of nature that couldn't be contained or controlled. Gwen, please, can we find a way to move past this? Kelly's voice was barely audible now, a plea from someone who finally understood the magnitude of what she had done. Gwen stared at her for a long moment, her chest rising and falling with the effort of containing her rage. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute finality. Move past this. Kelly, you don't get to destroy someone's career and then ask them to move past it because it's becoming inconvenient for you. You don't get to play the victim when your own actions are exposed. Gwen began gathering her things with deliberate, measured movements. The studio was so quiet that every sound, the rustle of fabric, the click of her heels, seemed amplified. This interview is over, Gwen announced, slinging her purse over her shoulder. And Kelly, the next time you want to have an authentic conversation about someone's career, maybe start by taking a long, hard look at your own behavior. She turned toward the exit, then paused, looking back over her shoulder with an expression that was part pity, part disgust. You know what's really sad about all this? I actually used to respect you. I thought you were different. I thought you were better than the mean girls who usually run this industry. But you're not different at all. You're just better at hiding it. With that devastating final blow, Gwen Stefani walked off the Kelly Clarkson show, her heels clicking against the studio floor like a countdown to Kelly's professional destruction. The audience sat in stunned silence as Kelly collapsed back into her chair, her face buried in her hands. The wreckage of her carefully constructed image scattered around her like broken glass. And there you have it, one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history, a confrontation that started as a simple interview and ended with careers potentially destroyed and friendships obliterated. What did you think of this explosive encounter? Do you think Gwen was justified in her accusations, or did she go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that the entertainment industry doesn't want you to know.